CenterPoint allows you to email or print the different forms that you send to your customers, such as the sales order, the customer invoice, and the billing statements. If you choose to email, the form is attached as a PDF document to the email sent to the customer. In order to use the email feature in CenterPoint, we need to set up the email for you as a sender. That's done under File and Preferences, Email Setup, and then click Email Setup again. And the information up at the top needs to be filled in for your server information. If you don't know some of this information, you might need to talk to your provider. You can also click the little blue question mark in the lower right that describes each one of these fields and perhaps help identify what's needed there. You want to fill in your email address and click Test. That will send an email to you and verify that this information has been set up correctly. Once you have that information filled in, there's also some default subject and messages that you can fill in for your different forms that you send out, such as your billing statements. You could have a subject up here for monthly billing statement and a message of who to call with questions. Or your customer invoices. This one's been filled in already. A customer invoice is attached and a little message. And your sales order also of what the subject is. And filling this out alleviates you entering this information every time that you do a sales order or a customer invoice. Once you have that done, you're going to save. And next we have to go to the Customers Email Print tab. So we're going to go up to Setup and Customers and edit a customer and select the Email Print tab. This information identifies the different email addresses that need to be used for this particular customer. And each one of these columns indicates the different forms that could be sent through email from CenterPoint. You can have as many on this list as needed. So we have one person who is getting a sales order emailed to, and the options here are no email, a send to, send a carbon copy, or send a blind carbon copy. So Caleb is getting the send to for the sales order, and Sarah is getting the send to for the customer invoice. But I could also do Sarah as a carbon copy. So you can have different combinations like that. And again, you can have as many on this list as you need. The different tabs that you see here will depend upon the different modules that you own. So if you own the sales order module and the purchase order module, you'll have those tabs. And then down on the bottom are the print options that you want for the different forms. So do you want to print customer invoices? If we're emailing, then you might want that at no. If we're not emailing statements, then you might want yes at customer statements. Or you can do both. You can have yes at both, whatever the situation is for this particular customer. Once you have those items identified, then you can save. And the next sales order or customer invoice you do will have the icon for email checked as green, indicating that it would send an email for that particular form. There are some other ways to manage who the email is sent from. Under Setup, General, and Email Addresses, we can also have other addresses, so it's not using the default one that's in our email setup over in Preferences that we did. Maybe there's another person in our organization that wants to be the send from for these different forms. So for example, we have Alyssa M, and she's going to be the sent from for doing sales orders. And again, we have no email, a sent from in this case, or send a carbon copy or send a blind carbon copy. Or there might be a manager that you have that wants to get a carbon copy or a blind carbon copy of some of these different forms, and then you can set that up. So for example, JCAS, maybe he wants to get a blind carbon copy of all the customer invoices. Then you would set that person up. Or even the customer might have an accountant that wants a copy of some of these forms, and you can put that person's name in here and email address and identify which forms that person wants. Additionally, you can have your salespersons that are attached to the customer receive a carbon copy of this particular email. So if the salesperson is identified to our customer, and we set this up as either send carbon copy or send blind carbon copy, every time an invoice goes out for that customer, the salesperson attached will also get a copy. So if we go back to our customer of Lakeside Distribution, here, Sienna would get a carbon copy of the customer invoice because we have marked to do the salesperson of email the customer invoice and send a blind carbon copy. So those are some ways to manage your email options and printing within CenterPoint.